You have been negotiating your worth with people who never intended to pay your price. Every time you laughed off disrespect to keep the peace, you lowered your value. Every time you tolerated behavior that violated your standards, you sent a silent message to the world. This is what I will accept. And the world obeyed. Not because people are evil, but because people respond to signals. Weak signals invite pressure. Strong signals command distance. Respect is not granted out of kindness. It is calibrated based on what you allow. Most men spend their lives trying to be liked, thinking likability will protect them. But likability without boundaries is just vulnerability wearing a smile. Machiavelli saw this pattern centuries ago in the courts of Italy. The prince who tried to please everyone was devoured by the very people he tried to satisfy. The prince who established limits cold, clear, immovable, became untouchable. Tonight you learn the one action that flips the hierarchy instantly. Not 10 actions, not a personality change. Not years of self-development. One move, one line in the sand that tells the world you are no longer available for disrespect. You stop rewarding behavior that undermines you. This is the rule that governs all human interaction. Behavior that is rewarded gets repeated. Behavior that is punished gets avoided. When someone interrupts you and you go quiet, you rewarded interruption. When someone mocks you and you laugh along, you rewarded mockery. When someone crosses a boundary and you explain instead of enforcing consequences, you rewarded violation. You trained them to treat you this way. Power begins the moment you reverse the training. Machiavelli wrote that men are ungrateful, fickle, deceptive, and greedy, not as an insult, but as a strategic observation. People follow incentives. They push where resistance is weak and retreat where resistance is strong. Respect, therefore, is not an emotional decision. It is a survival calculation. The man who enforces consequences becomes dangerous to cross. The man who explains becomes easy to test. Understand this clearly. Words do not create respect. Enforcement does. When someone disrespects you and you respond with speeches, you are negotiating. When someone disrespects you and you withdraw your presence, you are commanding. One asks for better treatment, the other demands it without speaking. This is the action. Remove access. Not dramatic confrontation, not emotional outbursts, not long explanations. Just controlled distance. You stop giving your time, your attention, your availability to those who mishandle it. You become scarce to those who treated you as common. Scarcity creates value faster than effort ever will. Niccolò Machiavelli watched rulers lose kingdoms because they failed to understand this principle. They believed loyalty could be bought with generosity, but generosity without selectivity breeds contempt. The more they gave, the less they were respected. The more available they became, the more they were taken for granted. Familiarity erodes authority. This is why powerful men throughout history mastered absence. They appeared when necessary, disappeared when not. Their presence became an event, not a constant. And because it was rare, it was respected. You must become that man. The moment you stop attending every invitation, answering every message, entertaining every demand, something shifts. People feel the loss before they understand it. The same individuals who ignored you start noticing your silence. The same voices that dismissed you begin to wonder if they miscalculated. Mystery replaces predictability, and mystery commands attention. Most men are predictable. They respond immediately. They forgive instantly. They tolerate endlessly. There is no uncertainty, no risk, no consequence for mistreating them, and without consequence, there is no respect. Predictability is comfort. Comfort kills authority. Machiavelli advised rulers to be unpredictable when necessary, feared when required, and controlled at all times. Not chaotic, not emotional, strategic. When people cannot anticipate your reaction, they become cautious. When they become cautious, they become respectful. Caution is the beginning of respect. You do not need to threaten anyone. You do not need to dominate physically. You do not need to raise your voice. Controlled withdrawal does what aggression never could. It forces people to confront the possibility of losing you. Loss clarifies value. Think about the times you were taken seriously. It was not when you were trying harder. It was when you were ready to walk away. The negotiation changed the moment you stopped needing the outcome. The relationship shifted the moment you stopped fearing the ending. Neediness invites exploitation. Detachment invites respect. This is why the single most powerful move you can make is refusing to chase resolution. When someone wrongs you, they expect confrontation. They prepare arguments. They anticipate emotional reactions. They rehearse defenses. But silence disarms preparation. When you give them nothing, their mind fills the void with uncertainty. Did he notice? Does he care? Is he done? Did I push too far? The questions multiply, and uncertainty breeds anxiety. Anxiety breeds caution, and caution breeds respect. Not admiration, not affection. Respect. Machiavelli did not care whether a ruler was loved as long as he was respected. Love is fragile. Respect is durable. Love depends on emotion. Respect depends on perception of power. You are shifting perception. The world begins to see you differently when you demonstrate that access to you is conditional, that your time is earned, not assumed, that your presence is a privilege, not a right. Privileges can be revoked. The first time you enforce this, it will feel unnatural. Your instincts will scream to explain yourself, to smooth things over, to restore comfort. That is the conditioning of a lifetime trying to avoid conflict. But growth requires discomfort. Authority requires friction. You are not becoming rude. You are becoming selective. Selective men are respected because they cannot be consumed by everyone. Their energy is allocated with intention. Their attention is focused on purpose. Their tolerance is reserved for those who prove worthy. Everyone else encounters distance, and distance changes behavior faster than confrontation ever will. People adjust when they realize access is no longer guaranteed. They become more careful, more attentive, more respectful, not out of kindness, but out of self-interest. Self-interest is the engine of human behavior. You are learning to use it. From this moment forward, you observe who respects your boundaries and who resists them. The ones who adapt earn proximity. The ones who push against them disqualify themselves. No anger, no drama, no revenge, just quiet elimination. This is how powerful men curate their environment. They do not argue with chaos. They remove themselves from it. They do not beg for respect. They make disrespect expensive. They do not chase approval. They become the standard approval must reach. Once you do this, even once you withdraw from someone who expected unlimited access, you will see the shift. The tone changes. The attitude changes. The treatment changes. Because for the first time, they understand there is a cost to mishandling you, and men who impose costs are men who are respected. This is where your transformation begins. The first time you enforce distance, people will test you, not because they hate you, but because they are trying to see if the old version of you is still available. Human beings are pattern detectors. They trust consistency more than words. If you have been accessible for years, they will assume this new behavior is temporary, a phase, a mood, something that will fade if they apply enough pressure. This is the moment most men fail. They hold the line for a day, maybe a week, then guilt creeps in. Doubt whispers that they are overreacting. Fear tells them they might lose people permanently. So, they return to their old habits, and the observers learn the truth. His boundaries are negotiable. Negotiable boundaries invite permanent disrespect. Machiavelli warned rulers about this exact weakness. Mercy, shown too often, becomes permission. Kindness without discipline becomes liability. When people realize there is no real consequence, they stop taking the rules seriously. Authority dissolves not through rebellion, but through repeated tolerance. Your power depends on consistency. You cannot enforce consequences once and then retreat. You must become known as the man who does not fold, the man who does not respond to emotional pressure, the man whose silence is final, not tactical. Because once people believe your withdrawal is permanent, their behavior transforms instantly. They become careful with their words. They measure their tone. They hesitate before crossing lines they once ignored, not because they suddenly developed empathy, but because they now associate disrespect with loss. Loss is the only language some people understand. There is a psychological principle at work here that Machiavelli grasped long before modern science named it. Loss aversion. The pain of losing something is stronger than the pleasure of gaining it. People will fight harder to avoid losing access to you than they ever did to appreciate having it. This is why respect often arrives after distance, not before. When you were always there, your presence was invisible, like air, essential but unnoticed. Only when the air is removed does panic set in. Only when access is restricted does value become visible. You are not punishing people. You are revealing your worth through absence. But understand this clearly. Distance must be controlled, not emotional. If you withdraw out of anger, it feels unstable. If you withdraw out of pride, it feels performative. But if you withdraw with calm precision, it feels absolute. Calm signals certainty. Certainty commands respect. Picture a king leaving a room because a jester insulted him. If he storms out in rage, the court whispers that he lost control. If he argues, the jester gains importance. But if he stands, says nothing, and walks away slowly, the entire room feels the shift. The jester becomes small. The king becomes untouchable. Your life operates by the same rules. When you disengage without emotion, you force others to confront their own behavior. There is no argument to win, no reaction to feed on, no drama to exploit. Only silence, heavy, deliberate, and impossible to manipulate. Silence removes leverage. Most conflicts continue because both sides are engaged. As long as you participate, the dynamic remains alive. But when one side stops playing, the game collapses. The provocateur is left performing for an empty audience. And without an audience, provocations die. This is why the most respected men are often the least reactive. They do not rush to defend themselves. They do not scramble to clarify misunderstandings. They do not chase people who drift away. Their stability makes them intimidating, because stability cannot be controlled. Emotional men are predictable. Predictable men are manageable. But the man who cannot be provoked becomes a problem no one wants to deal with. Insults bounce off him. Manipulation fails. Guilt tactics collapse. Eventually, people stop trying. And when people stop trying to control you, they start respecting you. Machiavelli described power as the ability to shape outcomes without appearing to exert force. That is exactly what you are doing. You are changing behavior not through confrontation, but through controlled absence. Invisible pressure is the most effective pressure. There is also another transformation happening beneath the surface. As you enforce boundaries externally, your internal world changes. You begin to see yourself differently. Your self-respect increases because your actions align with your standards. Confidence stops being an act and becomes a byproduct. Confidence born from discipline is unshakable. Most men try to feel confident before acting confident. Powerful men act with standards first, and confidence follows automatically. When you prove to yourself that you can walk away from disrespect, something clicks in your mind. You realize you are not trapped. You realize you have options. Options are the foundation of power. A man who believes he has no alternatives will tolerate anything. A man who knows he can leave will tolerate nothing that violates his principles. This mindset radiates through your posture, your voice, your decisions. People sense it even if they cannot explain it. Respect is often intuitive before it is conscious. You will notice subtle changes. People will stop interrupting you mid-sentence. They will ask instead of assume. They will think twice before making jokes at your expense. Opportunities will appear because you no longer look desperate for them. Desperation repels, detachment attracts. This is why Machiavelli emphasized self-control above all else. Control over others begins with control over yourself. If you cannot master your impulses, your need for approval, your fear of isolation, then others will use those weaknesses against you. But once you demonstrate independence from their validation, you become difficult to manipulate. Manipulation requires leverage. Leverage requires need. Remove the need, and the leverage disappears. This is the deeper reason everyone starts respecting you after you enforce boundaries once. It is not the action alone, it is what the action communicates. It tells the world you are not governed by fear of losing people. You are governed by commitment to your standards. Standards separate leaders from followers. Followers adjust themselves to maintain acceptance. Leaders adjust their environment to maintain integrity. Followers chase belonging. Leaders create distance until the right people step forward. You are stepping into leadership of your own life. And leadership begins with the willingness to stand alone, the courage to risk misunderstanding, the discipline to endure temporary isolation for permanent authority. Because in the end, respect is not given to the man who is always surrounded. It is given to the man who could stand alone if necessary. Once people see that you can exist without their approval, they stop trying to control you through it. And that is when real respect begins. Now comes the final shift, the part most men never reach, because it requires something deeper than strategy. It requires identity. Enforcing boundaries once earns attention. Enforcing them consistently earns respect. But embodying them transforms you into someone who no longer needs to enforce anything at all. Because, eventually, people stop testing the man who has proven he cannot be moved. This is the stage where your presence alone sets the tone. You walk into a room and the atmosphere adjusts without you saying a word. Conversations become more measured. Disrespect evaporates before it forms, not out of fear of punishment, but out of recognition of who you are. You are no longer reacting to the world. The world is reacting to you. Machiavelli understood that the highest form of power is reputation. A prince who had to constantly display force was weak. A prince whose reputation made force unnecessary was invincible. When people believe crossing you leads to loss, they choose caution automatically. Reputation is silent enforcement. Every time you refuse to chase, refuse to explain, refuse to tolerate what violated your standards, you were building that reputation, brick by brick, decision by decision, until eventually it became visible even to those who never witnessed the process. They only see the result, a man who cannot be pressured. This is when respect stops being situational and becomes permanent. It follows you into new environments, new relationships, new opportunities, because you carry the same energy everywhere. You do not perform confidence, you operate from it. And here is the paradox Machiavelli would appreciate most. The moment you stop needing respect is the moment you receive the most of it. Need repels. Self-sufficiency attracts. When you no longer seek validation, approval, or reassurance, you become psychologically independent. Independent men cannot be bribed with praise or controlled by criticism. Their compass is internal, their direction is self-determined. That level of autonomy is rare, and rarity commands respect automatically. You will also notice something else. The wrong people begin to disappear. The ones who thrived on your previous tolerance will drift away because the environment no longer benefits them. They cannot manipulate you. They cannot drain you. They cannot use you as emotional leverage, so they leave. This is not loss. This is filtration. Machiavelli believed a wise ruler must purge threats before they grow strong. You are doing the same, but without confrontation. Your standards act as a filter that removes incompatible people naturally. What remains are individuals who respect you because they understand access is earned. Quality replaces quantity. Many men fear this stage because it feels like isolation at first, but isolation is only temporary. It is the space where your new life reorganizes itself, where better allies, stronger relationships, and higher-level opportunities begin to appear, because respect attracts respect. Weak connections dissolve so strong ones can form. Superficial attention disappears so genuine recognition can take its place. You stop being surrounded by noise and start being surrounded by intention. This is the environment where powerful men operate. From here forward, you no longer need to do anything to be respected. You simply maintain your standards. You protect your time. You guard your attention. You speak when necessary and remain silent when it serves you. Silence is no longer a tactic. It is part of your nature. People will call you calm, composed, intimidating, mysterious. They will try to decode you, to understand why you feel different from everyone else. The truth is simple. You stopped negotiating your worth. And once a man stops negotiating his worth, the world has no choice but to meet his price. This is what happens when you do that one thing once truly, decisively, without apology. You prove to yourself that you are capable of self-respect. And self-respect is the root from which all external respect grows. Without it, no strategy works. With it, almost nothing can stop you. So, from this day forward, remember the principle that changed everything. Access to you is earned, not assumed. Your presence is valuable because it is selective. Your attention is powerful because it is controlled. Your silence is respected because it is intentional. You are not difficult. You are disciplined, and discipline is what separates men who are tolerated from men who are respected. This is the Machiavellian truth most will never accept. The world does not decide your value. You demonstrate it through what you refuse to tolerate. Do this once, and you will see the shift. Do it consistently, and you will become the man no one dares to underestimate. Your transformation is complete.